The voice in your ears is perfect Pervis, and this is the off season. Today, we're going to talk about team loyalty. Specifically, we're going to stick to American football, but a lot of what we're going to talk about can apply to almost any sports teams, anyways, both individual and team sports. But before we get into it, I got two guests on the show today. I'm gonna let you guys introduce yourselves. Tell us your name, where you're from, how you involved with American football, and what you want to get accomplished on this topic today. Adam, you can go first.
Adam Coronado from Oxnard, California. I'm currently living in Germany for my 5th year. I'm the current head coach of the Erding Bulls, still a player. And to accomplish today, just get my word out there, just get myself out there, get the brand out there. And, like I said on the last episode, just connect with more imports and, more players in the Europe community.
Yes, sir. And I'm Ashley Bailey. I'm a quarterback from England. Been playing, I'll play in air quotes, pro for the past 6-7 years now. We'll see where I'm going to sign next year. I'm a free agent. I just finished playing in Australia. But yeah, I've been around different countries in Europe playing ball. So yeah, this is year 6, going into year 7 now for me.
All right, and that's all introductions. I'm Perfect Pervis. Y'all know who I am. So we're going to get into it. First thing I want to talk about is, what is loyalty? I'm going to let you guys each tell us your definition, but I'm going to tell you my definition first. Loyalty is, it's hard to define because, obviously the dictionary has a definition, but I don't care about that. My definition of loyalty, I would say simply would be, I'm with you, not anybody else. And when I say that, it means like when you become loyal to somebody, you don't have to worry about being, with anyone else or a part of anyone else. Like they don't have to worry about recruiting you again. And we're talking about like teams and stuff. Is like if I'm playing for a team, the next year they know that they got first dibs. That's loyalty. If stuff don't work out, I understand, but it's never one of the situations where after I play for a team, I'm immediately looking for another place. First thing I want to do is figure out where me and that team is, and then I decide if I want to go somewhere else. One thing that comes up to me a lot, because I'm obviously from, the Finland area, is that guys change teams all the time. And I'm not talking, again, I'm not specifically even talking about imports. I don't know how it is in most of the other countries. I'll never act like I do know how it is, but I do know how it is in Finland. And you could have a guy who in the last 5 years played on 5 different teams. And in that same time, you're playing with and against people on a regular basis. And for me, as coming from, Texas football, the mecca of American football, for me, that's those type of people I don't trust. But that's the norm out here. That's what people do. They play for the situation that best fits them. And for me, that's just not loyal. To throw out my anecdote before I ask you guys about your terms of loyalty. When I played here in Finland, the last time I played on a team in Helsinki, the Wolverines. And I remember distinctly we played against the Helsinki, the East City Giants. They're from Helsinki, though. I remember a good friend of mine, as a matter of fact, throw him out from the ASF podcast, Chris Green. He consistently shows me this video when we were playing them for a game, and I was talking mad shit. I was telling them, they ain't us. They hate us because they ain't us. I was like, and they jerseys ugly too, I'm all in on my squad, we were blue and gold, blue and yellow. They was black and yellow, and I was like, it looked like some ugly ass bees. I'm talking mad shit the whole time. And we ended up beating them every time we played them, and I told them it is what it is. But after the season, I no longer was going to be going back to the Helsinki Wolverines. And I remember someone from their organization said, hey, if you're not going back to the Wolverines, we'd love to have you, blah, blah, blah. And I told them straight up, I was like, I got to be honest with you. I can't do that because, I was all in. So, I can't just switch up on that team. And even though I'm not playing for the Wolverines, I would feel like I'm betraying who I am if I go to their rival. It would have been different, like a team somewhere I hadn't played against or we didn't have no beef, but that was city rival. I told them maybe in 2 years, if I'm still wanting to play or something, maybe I would think about that. But I'm not going to go from this team in the city to the other side of the same city and not feel like I'm a, I'm gonna say it, punk ass bitch. Like that's how I would have felt about it. But that's not how people feel. And just going back into the whole Finland thing, Helsinki has almost 5 teams in the area of Helsinki, and I know people who played on all 5 teams. And it's like, I understand you got to do what you got to do, but at the end of the day, what you're doing is creating that lack of passion for the game. Because without loyalty, there's no passion, there's no reason, there's no motivation to, be great when situations aren't great for you. Sometimes you just playing the play. Sometimes not about winning. Sometimes not about money. Sometimes you got to ask somebody to do something they don't want to do. They less likely to do it if you're not a loyal type person. I know I'm dragging on, but I'm going to get this out. Even loyalty can go outside of sports, outside of actually playing. Me doing this podcast, there are certain people that probably want to be on this podcast that won't ever get the chance because I know they're not loyal. You two guys, we've had conversations more with me personally more with Ashley than Adam, but Adam is, he in the circle now because he done came through for me a couple of times and I appreciate it. But me and Ashley, we go way back.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
People have asked me about Ashley Bailey. I ain't gonna put his business or their business out there, but I always gave 100% of what I think of him as a player and a person. And I know that if anyone asked him about me, that he would do the same. I ain't gotta ask him either. I'm not going to. But we know what it is, and that's called loyalty. And that's something that some of these players, and I want to stick more to domestics than imports, because obviously imports have a different motivation to play, and it could change from, team to team. But it's the domestics that really is, getting into my thing. So I know I went on too long. But Ashley,
it's one of those, like, for me, I've played, since we last spoke, I've been on, I think, 7 or 8 different teams. And that hasn't been me trying to choose where I'm going and blah, blah, blah. Situations happen when you're an import. But like you say, especially like in Czech Republic, the whole thing about loyalty is like, if you're a domestic player, you're from this city and you're with your team, you stay with your team. You know what I'm saying? But it's like a lot of guys here, they'll see who the best team is if it's Prague Lions and you have all these guys traveling 4 or 5 hours to come play for Prague Lions. And then next year it's the Gladiators and then everyone goes there. Then it's PvP. So like that right there, when you see these guys like on social media or in the games, they're talking their trash and stuff. And it's like, bro, you're only here because you think you're going to win a trophy. But then the team that you're from, the team that you grew up with, you're not loyal to them. So how can you then get onto the imports saying, oh, you're only going here, there because of this? It's like, bro, you pay to play and like you're from that city. So play for your city. You know what I mean? Don't keep jumping team because you think you're going to like get success because you're associated with this club. You know what I mean? And that's definitely something where I feel for domestic players, it's more on them to have team loyalty. And then for imports, like, unless the situation was bad that you're in, most likely imports want to stay in the same place. Like for me personally, I haven't played in the same team for more than one season, like in my whole football career, even starting from when I first started. And all I've wanted is to have a team where it's like, cool, I'm with you guys, I'm staying, let's run this back. You know what I mean? So it's like, you got guys that are looking for that loyalty, and then there'll be a team that's like, oh yeah, like my first team I signed with, I wanted to re-sign with them. But then most of the core guys ended up leaving to one of our rival teams in Prague. So then they didn't have a team to be able to run it back. So that's why they couldn't re-sign me. They ended up dropping from the first league down to the third league. And I'm like, wow, what do you guys mean? Like, I thought you hated those boys. Like, what's happening? You know what I mean? So like, I kind of feel what you're saying about.
It's strictly a domestic thing. Like,
yeah.
I would never, if you're getting paid or if you're getting, some type of compensation, obviously do what's best for you. But most of the teams in Europe, the players are, pay to play type situation. To compare it to the United States, it goes back to like, when you're in high school or even when you're in Little League, you got a rival. You don't go and play on that team. I understand if you end up switching teams because of coaches or something. Again, there's always exceptions, but you never really want to go play on another team.
Nah, that's
But
it.
out here in Europe, that's never really the case. And that's because teams aren't like players and teams aren't loyal. You also got management where they're like, well, we just want certain type of players. Or we want players here or there. I've seen guys send an import home and then take another player that's playing in the same league or something. It's like, so you just don't rock with that guy no more. So you're just gonna pick up another guy. He's not gonna want to come back to that team because you know that he's dispensable, something like that. But Adam, what's your definition of loyalty?
Definition of loyalty, just flat out loyalty, just faithfulness, dedication, honesty, trust, support. It's kind of like what you said, and Ashley, like, you know when someone's going to be loyal. It's like, when you go to a store, you pick a certain store, you always go there every single day, you go nowhere else. And, that's loyalty. That's just just a show of loyalty right there. Like a loyal dog, not per se a dog, but, like a dog. That's my definition of loyalty. And then if we get into imports and domestic, that's a whole nother thing right there.
We ain't gonna do that. We ain't ever gonna do that because
that's a whole nother.
There is a certain amount of loyalty for imports as well, but we don't. Sure. We don't get on that on this episode.
But I think it's honestly the same. But I'll also play devil's advocate as well. It's like even with imports, as far as like team loyalty, like Ashley said, he's never been on a team, more than one year. For me, on the other hand, it's like I've been on two teams twice where I went back 2 years in a row, and offered the second time, but I chose not to go. But I was at Frankfurt when everybody went to Frankfurt. And the coaches win this too. So would that be being loyal to the coaches? You would naturally go with your coaches, right?
Yeah. There you go. You found that loophole. Like that's a level of loyalty.
But let's look at the other situation. Let's look at Munich. I'll play devil's advocate again. Let's look at Munich. I bet a lot of those guys been with Coach Nadine for a long time. She probably taught half them how to backpedal. And now let's spin it. A lot of them went to the Munich Ravens. But now let's put ourselves in their shoes, being domestic. Let's take our import shoes off and be domestic. So a lot of these guys will never get another opportunity like this per se. For me, it's just good camera. I don't know. I've never been there, so I can't tell you. First of all, but I just see better cameras and possibly a better fan view. As far as money, I don't know because I've never been there.
When you talking about the Munich situation, I mean, I feel like that's one of those things where I'm not gonna argue somebody's loyalty if they're, you're trying to level up, you level up. Like everybody, obviously, you want to play at the best level you can. When I'm talking about loyalty, I'm talking about when you got, apples and apples, not apples and oranges.
For sure.
Like I'm playing in GFL. I live in Munich, but Frankfurt want me to come play for them. And maybe Frankfurt's a better team at this moment. If I see somebody make that move, that's when the loyalty comes into question. But you want to go from one league to another, but you're still in Munich. Like you still representing your city, but you want to do it at the highest level.
You still got to play it though, because a lot of even imports, they'll be loyal to the club, but the club ain't loyal to them.
It go both ways. Yeah, it goes both ways.
I think even having new imports every year, per se, they get Joe Schmo, and the team likes Joe Schmo. Joe Schmo had an all right year, but the team didn't win. But the guys want Joe Schmo, but the president doesn't want Joe Schmo. He wants to go get Michael. And now Michael comes in. Now Michael come in, and now they had a worse season, and the team don't like Michael. So now we're gonna go get Jeff. So now we just went through Michael, Jeff, and Joe Schmo. Now that's three different imports, three different faces, three different playbooks. I think it goes around with everybody, even for domestic. How can they be loyal to anybody when they're not loyal to them?
Well, you know what? I'm gonna skip what I was gonna talk about the next part because what you're talking about is like reasons. Like that's the next thing I'm gonna say is the reasons that players, coaches, people involved. Why do they change teams or why are they not loyal? And you just said the first one right there, Adam, is the organization, management. If management and the players, if they not meshing, then you have that same situation where management is like, we need new players, we need new imports, and the players like, we're good. And then when a situation like what you just said happens, you lose players. They stop being loyal to the team because they don't feel part of the team because management has put them out. That's just one of the things. And that's a huge reason for a lot of teams is that again, I'm still trying to stay away from talking too much about the imports, but if the management, the people in charge are running the team a certain way, and the actual players and coaches who, doing the day to day, doing out there, they're the face of the team. If they're not in sync, then you're going to have people constantly doing things separate from what's good for the team. You're going to have players who don't want to play for that team because they feel like, I'm not really part of this team. This one faction of people run this team. They don't care about my opinion or what I like or what I want. So this is not my team. And then they're going to switch teams. And then you also got management who are like, I'm trying to manage this team and help them do this. And they don't understand what I'm doing. So, F them. I'm going to do it my way, or I'm going to go to another team. And both sides of the coin, that splits, that splits the loyalty. There's no loyalty on that team. That's not a team.
Vincent, but what about the players that, like, per se they're on a lower league team, right? And they're balling domestic. And what if they get the opportunity to go to, GFL, EFL? I feel like they got to take that chance. I'm
not knocking that. I'm not.
Okay,
Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Like, don't make me think that. Again, I'm talking apples and apples.
Right.
Like,
right.
I have no problem with a player saying, "Okay, I want to play better. Or I want to be on the next level." I get that. What I have a problem with is when player is on team A and team B wants them over there, and both of those teams are literally in the same level, or they play the same type of football, and his only reason for going is because he don't want to be where he's at, or he's not getting his way or something over there. Like, there's plenty of reasons. And you know what? Let me run through them. Obviously, the organization, that's one reason. And the organization, he don't rock with them, so he leaves. That's lack of loyalty. Now, it's a good reason, but it's still a reason for why he's not loyal to his team. And there's also maybe the team culture. He's not in the inner circle of players and coaches that hang out and stuff, so he leaves. I'm not saying it's not a valid reason, but it's still lack of loyalty. And then there's the next reason I got written down here is, financial reasons. Their fees are $50 higher than this other team. Like, I'm not pocket watching anybody. It's a good reason, but it's still lack of loyalty. Or then even like if his life situation changed, he go to school at this place now, or he got a job in that city now. I mean, that happens, but also it's one of them things where I look into how much of your life did it really change. Like, if you move 45 minutes away and you change teams, you just been lazy. Like, that's all that is. Like, an hour drive ain't really, like, if you were part of that team, you wouldn't worry about that. Now, if you move 6-7 hours, you gotta go where you gotta go. And I'm cool with that. But if you move back, I expect you to come back. But some of these guys, they move back and go somewhere else. That's where the loyalty comes into question. Obviously, every situation is unique. And then, like, the last thing I got on here is just plain selfishness. Some guys, they'll use all these reasons to change teams multiple times, which means they don't really have a priority of why they're going somewhere, doing something. They're just trying to get the best deal for them individually. And most guys that do that, you see them team hopping and you don't really mess with them. You see they don't really fit in nowhere because most people don't like all that put into one. But if you do one or two of these things, you can make it rock. And for me, it's just one of those situations where if you're loyal, like, even if you have to leave the team, I can still tell that you're loyal. Again, I'm not going to speak on what I don't know, but I will speak on what I do know. I know here in Finland, there's guys that, when they have to go to the army or when they have to go to college, or if they get a new job, they change teams. And I'm like, I understand. You moved and you still want to play. That makes sense. But those same dudes, when they not playing with that team, they back in their home city, practicing with the team they used to play with. And that's how I don't have nothing against their loyalty, because they're like, my situation got me out here, or I had to go here, but I'm gonna help y'all out the best I can. I had a guy where I live in Lati. This guy had to move to another city called Turku for his job, and he can't play. But when he moved, he still ended up getting on the board of directors for the team in Lati that he can't play for. Because that's how committed he was to the team. He was like, I can't play for y'all, but I'm still going to be involved. I'm still going to be in the messages in the groups and stuff. And then whenever that team does something, he tries to get in town and help out or bring people from somewhere else. And like he hasn't played for the team in almost 2 years now. His loyalty is not in question. If he ever gets the opportunity to live back in that city or near that city, we know we got him. That's what I'm talking about. Some of these guys, that type of stuff, they wouldn't even know nothing about it. You got guys that'll move 30 minutes across the tracks and act like they never lived there in the first place.
And see, from my experience, what I've seen, it's never usually like the homegrown, quote unquote star players. It's usually the guys who, from what I've seen, either don't get much reps or it's the same position that the team's going to bring an import in, so they don't really play much. So they're like, if I'm going to be doing all this practice and I'm hardly going to play, I want to win. You know what I mean? Like,
please, let's expand on these bums. Yeah, I'm calling what they is. They bums.
Because like to be honest, not playing hurts regardless if you're winning or losing. But not playing and losing, that sucks. And
see,
a lot of these guys talk. They're like, "Yo, listen, this coach don't like us. This team's not good. Let's go over there." And then you'll see like 4 or 5 guys, because then they'll like drive in the car together and drive 2 hours to the better team that they think is, and then go join them for that season. Because like, if I'm not gonna play much, at least I'm gonna be on a winning team. You know what I mean? And then it's like, oh, the team we moved to isn't doing so well. Which other team's the better team to play for? And then they'll just travel around just to try and, win.
Them motherfuckers ain't loyal.
But it's like, yo, do you want to get better and play? Like, okay, I get it. You're not playing much, but that's football. You know what I mean? You can't just keep traveling around just to hop on. You know what I mean? And it's like, there's a difference between circumstances why you move into like, I want to be on a winning team. And regardless of where that is or what I have to do, I'm going and I'm going to convince my boys to go too. You know what I mean? So then it's like, guys aren't really part of any team. But then what I've also noticed, these are the same people that have the most to say online and stuff. And it's like, yo, yeah, you've won 4 championships, but like 4 different teams. And what did you do? You know what I mean? Like, you're not loyal to any of that. And you winning, but you're not winning. You know what I mean? Like, for me personally, I would much rather go to a team and then stay there, build that team up, then win that. You know what I mean? Or even if you don't win, that means more to me personally than, just hopping onto a team because you want to win. And I've seen that happen so many times in Czech Republic. I haven't seen oh my goodness, in Berlin as well, because there's so many teams in Berlin. My goodness, I lived in Berlin for like 2 years. Berlin is crazy for that because everyone's in the same town. Like, every team's less than half an hour away from each other. You got all the first league teams, all the lower league teams, and guys move around every season. Some guys even try and switch halfway through the season. Yeah, it's wild because they're like, oh, I want to play. I want to be in the best team here. Which one is it? Which one is it? And then as soon as they feel like either it's too much hard work to win favor with the coach or get the start, they're like, all right, I'll go here because then I can start here and then play more and win. And then it's a whole... Yeah, I've definitely seen that firsthand. And me personally, even though it might look like I'm doing that, as an import, it's situational. You know what I mean? Like, I get signed and I travel out. That's a whole different...
hard to do it. Yeah, it's a whole different
thing. If
it
was up to me, I would have re-signed with a bunch of teams that I've played for already. There's other teams that I would never play for ever again, and that's a whole different story. But yeah, man.
Yeah, but talking about the winning culture, like the chasing the wins and stuff, obviously there's no way to like prove it, but just in general, people that are like that, those are the people that you don't want on your team in the first place. But the issue at hand, I guess, would be that people keep letting them on the team. And the only reason they're letting them on the team is because people still need players. So they let almost anyone on the team. Yeah, so they're like, oh, well, there's more players that can pay, so we'll take them. And that goes back to the, I don't want to stick to it too much, that goes back to the organization and management. Like, you got to tell some people no. You got to be like, y'all can't just come from this other team. One thing that I would like to see, and obviously this is just me throwing out random ideas, is, depending on like teams and situations, if players come from like, if they've played on a different team before, or they have to travel a certain distance that's really far to play on your team, they're considered an out of town player. I'd raise their fees. I mean, obviously they got to pay more to get there anyway, but I'd raise their fees so that you know that they either are all in or not. If they're all in, they'll pay them fees. They'll be like, oh, I got to pay more because I'm not from there. That makes sense. But if they not all in, they'll be like, pay more to play on that team when I can just play on this team. Nah, I'm good. And it'd be a deterrent from some of those like team hopping players. But some teams, what they do is if someone's coming from further away, they lower the fee. I'm like, that don't make sense because then you're going to get more people you can't trust. And what that does, that ruins the team culture too. Like that team doesn't feel like they're their own team. I played on teams and coached teams where, you know, there's one team don't have enough players. So they bring basically half their team to go play somewhere else and they have lower fees. Well, they're just borrowing those players. They don't become part of the team. So what you're doing is you're delaying the inevitable of not having enough players. So the team doesn't develop. Players get older, but they get used to playing with people they don't know. And they're like, well, you know, it's not really our team anymore anyways. So there's no biggie if I quit, if I don't play this season. All the team do is go find more people. And, you know, if you look around Europe and look at the good teams, they all have a core of domestic players who, no matter circumstances, end up playing for that team, being involved, helping that team somehow, and those teams win. And winning is a byproduct. It's not obviously it's the goal. You always want to win. But when you're thinking like from a team and loyalty standpoint, like I've played on teams where we lost. We weren't very good, but I wouldn't have traded that team. I mean, I know that because that's loyalty to the squad.
Yeah, I think one of those things also can come down to like if guys have come through their youth program, if they've come through like under 14s, under 18s, under 21, and they can see that there's a path, like say, I don't know, 80% of the senior team has come from the youth program, something like this, you know what I mean? Like, then it's like, all right, cool. When you're like a 14, 15-year-old kid, you're like, oh, I want to play for the seniors. That's my team, you know what I mean? And you can see guys graduating, going up, something like that. But then when you have teams that don't really actually care or put the time and resources into properly developing and coaching and teaching the youth programs, then it's like when guys get to the age where they can play men's, they're like, I don't want to play for this team anymore. Like, I want to go to a better team because I'm not getting coached here. I got other opportunities. It's not good here. You know what I mean? But then when you have teams, for example, I'll just say like here, you got teams like Prague Lions and Black Panthers. These two teams, they're both in the same city, both really, you know, commit to growing their youth programs and like that. Those kids, they never switch. They would never, like a PBP player hates Lions. Like in his core, he hates Lions. He would go anywhere else. He would never play. How it should be. And the same the other way. You know what I mean? And like, if you look here, those two are the best two youth programs too. And as at the adult level, now you've got PBP that plays in AFL and Prague Lions just joined the ELF, both playing at a high level. And most of their squads, okay, you have some guys that have joined in after, but most of their core guys are guys that have been there since they were kids. You know what I mean?
Yo, Ashley, Vincent, I got a question.
Yeah.
You know, just going off, you know, I was just listening. All right, so Ashley and Vincent, say you was hypothetically speaking, let's just say y'all was Schwabers Hall youth, right? All right, Schwabers Hall youth your whole life, you know, since whenever you started playing football. Then, you know, they brought you up GFL 1. You went straight GFL 1. I don't know the coach name, but he loved you. You was a starter, blase, right? Let's talk about today now. He went to the Surge, correct? Yeah.
I know what question you about to ask.
He went to the Surge. So let me ask you this. And he called you and he said, Vincent, Ashley, I want you on my team now, guys. So y'all telling me you're gonna tell him no? Because
hold on now. Because y'all loyal to
Schwabers Hall? Or are you gonna be loyal to your coach and you're gonna slide down to Stuttgart regardless of your fees or how far you gotta drive from Schwabers Hall to, you know, wherever. Even in any situation, all these teams, you know, that are turning up.
You know what?
You know,
damn,
where you gonna go?
You love asking these exceptional questions. I appreciate it.
Somebody got to.
Yeah, somebody got to.
Somebody got to play the role.
I would say
But I'm
straight
saying
off.
though, are you sliding or are
Yeah.
you saying? Are you gonna slide?
Let me explain it to you. Let me explain to you. Straight off, for me, it really depends on like who I am as a player. Like, am I that kid that this coach been coaching me since I was in the academy, since like juniors? Because then it's just like, all them dudes going from JSU to Colorado. Obviously, I'm just riding the coach because he been coaching me since day one. So that's who he's the reason I play football. So then it's a no brainer. But if I'm one of them dudes that I'm from Slavers Hall, and I'm like, yeah, Stuttgart, ELF, that's all cool. But, Slavers Hall, I'm building a dynasty here, and I'm going to continue building my dynasty, then I stay. And it really depends on what kind of player you are. Now, me personally, if I was the kid and I came all the way up, I would stay. But that's me. I ain't telling nobody to do that. And I ain't mad at nobody that do go. But me, as I was a kid and I was growing up, him leaving, all that does for me is it gives me an opportunity to see what I can do without. No offense, that would be the next challenge. Going up there and winning with Stuttgart wouldn't be a challenge to me. That would be me staying in my comfort zone with the coach I know and sticking to what I do know. And that's one thing I think some players have to learn growing up, both players and coaches, is the situations change, personnel change. But what you do, that's up to you. But if you always link to somebody, then that's your legacy. Is when you go to Stuttgart, if Stuttgart goes and win ELF this year, I don't care who the players are. I don't care what the fans say. Everybody gonna say Jordan Newman is the reason they won. It goes back to that Tom Brady, Bill Belichick type stuff. Now, if Slavers Hall wins the GFL this next year, you know what that says? That's the dynasty. Like they're gonna say with or without, certain coaches and personnel, we have set up this club. So for me as a player, I stay at Slavers Hall, win me another championship, and then think about going. Honestly.
Yeah.
Because after I proved that we don't necessarily need that, after I proved that it's the program, not the people, what's the next challenge? Now I gotta, make my personal legacy. But where I'm from, like right now, I gotta prove this the program over, chasing rings. But that's me. Because the ring to me is just a byproduct. It's not the goal. If your goal is to try to win or stay comfortable, that's cool. But the challenge is what I'm chasing when I'm thinking football. For me, it's what can I do to become the better version of me? Me going to a different place with the same people, that doesn't change anything. I'd rather sit right here and have people come to me. But again, I'm not mad at somebody that decides to go with their coach. Like some people have more loyalty towards people than organizations. And that's cool. And I'm okay with that. As long as if your loyalty is to those people, is not just because you want to be in their circle. Like they're gonna win, so you want to go there. But if that's your coach and you like I ride for him, I'm never gonna tell you you're not loyal for that. And I got no beef with you, honestly. And the same way with guys that, like coaches that go together. Like I like that. I think that's really loyal. Like if the coach leaves, he has to leave, so he brings people with him. And going back to what we're not supposed to talk about, imports do that too. What team was that a while back? Was it Hildesheim, where all those imports went there together? Because that's what they wanted to do. Yeah. And that's something I believe 100% in because that shows loyalty on a different level. I think that's something I didn't put in here was that loyalty. I mean, there's levels to it. There's different types of loyalty outside of just being loyal to the team. I think I titled this as team loyalty, and Adam got me thinking about personal loyalty, which player and coaching loyalty.
Yeah, I took it as loyalty, just on a basis, just in general. But I feel like all of it combined as one. At the end of the day.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. But I took the question over. Ashley, you had anything about it? My bad.
See, I've got two trains of thought about that question. It depends on. Well, me as a quarterback, it depends on where I am in my career. Like if I'm where I'm at now, age 25, I want to be the starter at Unicorns. You know what I mean? As a European player, because I know that's what I forget his name, the quarterback who he just went back there. He went to Berlin Thunder, but he grew up as a Unicorn. He's just gone back to Unicorns now, and like I see why he's done it because now it gives him the chance to be the guy. You know what I mean? And it's like if I was to go with the coach, am I gonna get playing time? You know what I mean? It's like, as much as I love the coach, it's like, what's best for me in this situation? Let me be loyal to my boys. They already know me. Let me stay with the Unicorns. And now I've got this opportunity where it's like, cool, let's go. You know what I mean? Like, it's my time now. I've been here since I was a kid. Let's play. On the other hand, if I'm, say, a little bit further on into my career, and I'm a European guy, I've never been paid to play. I've been paying this whole time. And now I've got this opportunity to go with my coach, go to Stuttgart, which is kind of close, get to travel around Europe, not just Germany, get paid to play also. That's a situation that a lot of these European guys will never experience, like you said already. So I think it would depend. It all depends. Yeah. Like me personally, at this age, at this stage of my career, I would stay in Germany and play for Unicorns. Just based on the fact where it's like, I would probably start if I stayed. And if I go with coach, then I'm going to be a backup again. And it doesn't really help me as a player personally. You know what I mean? Like, hopefully, fingers crossed, ELF's not going anywhere. German League's not going anywhere. So at least for this season, I would stay with Unicorns. And then year after that, we'll see. You know what I mean? We'll definitely see.
Yeah, because I feel like with the situation you just said, like, if the coach hits you up and like, hey, we want you. Yeah, he wants you, but he don't need you.
Nah, that's it. That's it.
Like, your loyalty would be like, yeah, if you needed me, coach, I'm there, but you don't need me. Like you're gonna be able to do this by yourself, and I gotta take my personal journey over here. So like, you wouldn't feel bad, and he wouldn't feel bad if you said no either.
Nah,
and
for sure.
That's another part of it. When you got loyalty to somebody, they can tell. You know, like, that's one of the situations. Like, if you hop in teams and then you ask the coach, have your back, you're like, you ain't even gonna play for me next year if it don't work out for you. Obviously, I'm not gonna have your back. But if you talk to the coach and he's like, well, I understand you got to do what you got to do for you, but I know if you could, you come for me. That's again, loyalty on a whole nother level. Because I feel like a player like what you just said from that situation, you don't go not because you're not loyal to the coach or not even because you're more loyal to the team, because you understand that your situation needs to be done. And if the coach is loyal to you, he'll understand. If he's not loyal to you, he'll be like, oh, you just don't want to help me win. And then that guy, and you know that from there on that, that's not the guy no more. I mean, damn, that's a good question, Adam. Mad at you, man. Got us out here. We outside the box today.
Yeah, I was just thinking for a second. I was like, all right, so I'm gonna just, see, what you guys do with your move.
Yeah, but honestly, just to add on to that, I really think the emergence of the ELF and every year new teams coming up, that's definitely showing which teams have really, earned the loyalty from the players, and which teams where it's like, yeah, guys are loyal to us, but it could have been better. You know what I mean? Like, for example, like in certain cities or areas, for example, you see what happened with Frankfurt. The whole Frankfurt Universe team went to, Frankfurt, what was it, Galaxy? The GFL team went to the ELF. And you saw the difference. Like, literally everyone left. It's not like, oh, no, we'll see, but we're here, blah, blah, blah. It's like, yo, we don't.
But shouldn't that be how it goes, though? Like, if the whole city goes ELF, the whole team should go with them. If the whole team don't go with them, you really got an issue.
But that's the
Jordan Newman situation is different because you're talking about people.
They both different, but in all situations, it give the lower guys a chance to step up, or the guys that think they can ball, that can possibly ball, but never had, even like some guys in the States never got the chance, never got the opportunity. Yeah. Now they got the opportunity, and some of these dudes can play ball. Now they playing GFL 1 where they always wanted to be. GFL ain't going nowhere. It's been here. It's going to be here. It's going to be here for a long time. So
I think it's one of those situations where, like, obviously it depends on if the whole team, because that Frankfurt thing, the whole team should go. But then with the Jordan Newman situation, the whole team should not necessarily go. Because the team isn't what went up, it's just the coach. Which, again, that's that whole, back to the original topic, team loyalty is very hard to keep. Because, like you said, with all these teams popping up, the Prague Lions, them going up there, for the Prague Lions, it's a no-brainer. You obviously keep playing for the Prague Lions. But what about the Black Panthers? When another team goes up and it ain't your team, do you leave your team? And that's when we get into like the real meat of it. Is that's some situations where everybody like, well, I want to play at the best level. I don't know, man. I mean, that's tough when you have it at different levels. I mean, obviously, my envision is always at the same level, like the apples and apples. That's where I feel like it's easy. I feel like it's easy to determine the loyalty. The apples to oranges is tough to determine the loyalty, but also it's one of those things where I don't feel like a lot of players that are playing somewhere, like say you play in the same city for 3 years, you're not necessarily trying to leave unless you have to. And usually there's some reasons why you have to. Like, that's going to bring me to the last part we're going to talk about before we get up out of here, the solution. Like, what are some ideas of how you can increase team loyalty for some of these teams in their situations? I mean, I guess we could still use the same examples we've been using. I'll throw out one solution that wasn't even on my mind, but now it is put your team at the highest level possible.
Nah, for sure. Sure.
Don't muddle around in the middle. Make your team, if your team is, in the ELF, you shouldn't lose players. You shouldn't lose domestics, at least. Or in thinking, in different countries, obviously you never know. But, if your team is in the highest level in that country, you shouldn't lose players, even if it's not ELF also. I think that really depends. If the ELF puts a team in your city and your team isn't on it, that's your fault. Like, you got to fix that shit. But if there's, an ELF team, but it's not in your city, the comparison to that should be that your team should be at the highest level in that country already.
Yeah.
One situation that's really interesting is that team in Switzerland. That team isn't affiliated with any team in Switzerland. So anyone that plays on that team most likely left their team to play on that team. So the biggest issue, and I'm not even going to get into like the loyalty of those players. Honestly, if you're moving up, you're moving up. Like I'm never going to be mad at anybody for taking that opportunity. But the question would be, that team, the Helvetic Guards, will they have any team loyalty? And I'm not going to get into it, but you got to look at the roster from year to year. Is it the same Swiss people, or is there new Swiss people coming every year because they have no real culture or stability to, lay claim in that area? Zurich is a very highly populated area, but a lot of their coaches are import coaches.
Mm-hmm.
They have a few domestic coaches from all over the area. Do those domestics just bring guys from their team? And then what if that teams end up folding after a year or two? Again, we still don't know if the ELF is going to, make the long run. But at that point, do those players go back to their team? Will their team accept them? A lot of questions. That's one of the most interesting questions for me is that Swiss team, because it's obviously not connected to anybody else. I know the Munich team technically isn't either, but the city's a little bit more, available with the whole country of Germany and stuff. But that Switzerland team, Switzerland doesn't have a lot of football players. So domestically, they're going to have to pull from those other teams. And will they stay on that team? That's an interesting question. But what about you guys? What are some solutions you think that would help provide more team loyalty? Not player loyalty, Adam. God damn it. I mean, I appreciate it, but the player loyalty is hard because that's more like relationships. Players and coaches, it's more of a relationship situation. But team loyalty can kind of be manufactured depending on different aspects of the team. So that's why I'm asking, like, what do you think some teams can do to, keep their players and have players not want to leave per se?
I'll go first. I've got a couple of ideas what I think could work. I think one would be if management, like from top to bottom, really focus on, trying to bring an import in as a last resort. So like really, working with the guys they have. If they got to bring in coaches to help develop the guys and help recruit in the area, and you've got like 6 receivers, instead of bringing in 3 Americans in or whatever like that. I really feel like trying to grow the guys, given the youth players, like as a team, like aim, really giving the youth players a chance to move up and working on, the players you have. And then if you do have to bring in imports, try and bring in guys that you want to keep for at least 2 seasons. You know what I mean? Just show that like we have what we need here, and then this is the team. And if we need some guys in, we'll bring them in. But, we'll try every local available option first. I think that's a really big thing, because I know, a lot of players feel like if they're just going to bring someone else in, what's the point of me staying here? You know what I mean? And that's a tough position to be in, because you can bring guys in, but if you lose the local guys, you lose the team. If there's no local guys, there is no team to bring any imports into in the first place. So I think that's one of the main things. And also what I started seeing here is teams signing players, like local guys, making them sign contracts, like a 2-year contract, something like that. They're not getting paid to play, or there's no monetary value in the contract. But it's like, look, we're going to give you, let's say, I don't know, helmet, shoulder pads, and all that kind of stuff. You pay your fees, but you're with us for a 2-year period minimum. Like you sign with us, you stay here. That's it. Because then, as a team, you can be sure, like, okay, we might not have a good season this 1 year, but then you're not going to lose these guys that feel, oh, we had one bad year, I'm going to leave. You know what I mean? So it really lets the players know they're committed to me, and it lets the team know, like, yeah, we're committed to you, and that whole type of thing. So I really think it's more commitment. And again, not just jump into signing import players, and also try not to sign import players from opposite teams too, because I see that happen way too often. Like that defeats the whole object of, trying to be loyal to a team, where it's like, oh yeah, this quarterback played for X team, he was good, let's sign him here. Like, yo, nah, we still hate him. Let's bring someone else in if we're going to bring someone in. So I think that's a couple of ways you can
taking those jobs from some of them imports. Damn, Ashley, damn.
As an import, it's risky for me to say, but I've been around and I've seen what it can do. You know what I mean? Like, I've been to places where it's like, oh, damn, I'm just another import brought in. And then guys don't come to practice. It's like, nah, Ash, you're good. I don't need to practice. I don't need to come to practice. You're going to save us. And it's like, I'm not, bro. Like, we all need to be a team. Like, I'm coming to help you, like, but it's your team to start with, So, yeah, I think that's some ways you can go around it, I guess.
Yeah, I like those ideas. And I just want to talk about that last thing you said about, like, not taking imports from the other teams and stuff. Like, just to add on to that, it's one of those things where if teams, and now we're again going to import heavy, but if teams were to, get an import and maybe the season don't go the way you want to, if you keep those imports, even if y'all didn't win or if y'all weren't good, if you keep those imports, the team knows what it has to do to get better, which means you're ahead. Like, you don't have to start all over. You don't have to recruit new players. You don't have to figure out how the new players are going to gel. You don't have to ask the old players who's coming back, because you could tell them, we're going to run it back and get better at what we didn't do. Like, maybe we didn't win. It wasn't because we weren't good players. It was because, we weren't in the right situation. Our coaches can work on that in the offseason. Or maybe we just couldn't tackle. We can practice tackling. Or maybe the quarterback and receivers just didn't mesh till towards the end of the season type of thing. We can work on that. Like, I just seen something happen here in Finland where the Helsinki Roosters had a down season. They brought in a new quarterback. First 3 or 4 games, he was throwing dimes. Receivers weren't catching anything. And by the end of the season, he was one of the leading leaders in passing yards because the receivers started getting accustomed to his pass. Now, if they don't bring him back next year, you got to start all over.
Right.
If they bring him back, and even though they didn't have I don't think they made playoffs, but if they bring him back next year, they're not starting over on offense. They're continuing, which gives them a better chance. And that's something that, again, I think it goes towards loyalty too, is, just because a player didn't bring you a championship, or maybe y'all didn't even win, half your games, doesn't mean you give up on that import. Same way you wouldn't give up on the domestic. So if you think of them in that aspect, the team can be better. Well, yeah, I just wanted to jump on that last point. But what about you, Adam? What is something you think of how we can increase team loyalty?
Team loyalty, you guys really hit it on the head. Ashley really hit it on the head. Like make players sign contracts. All that gives them confidence and stuff. And it starts from the top, like you guys hit on the head. But I believe in imports. Not a side of action, but I believe in imports. But I believe in imports. For the long run. Like we talked. I don't want to get on the import topic, but it's kind of the same. Import right now at this level, a domestic player is worth more than an import right now. But we're not going to get into that. But I feel like the loyalty is the same, though. You bring a guy in, you want to bring this guy in like for 2 or 3 years at least. 2 years at least. Who cares if you go on 10 the first year? You sit down, you figure it out. Even with your domestic guys, it gives them confidence, it gives them comfort. They're going to come back. You do that to all your guys, they'll all be back. But at the end of the day, I'll just end with this. I feel like players, domestic, import, all the way to the top, they got to be loyal with themselves first. And then they can, pass on, with the team and everybody else. And, if the energy's right, nobody's going nowhere like you guys, touched on earlier.
Yeah, you said it perfect right there, Adam. We're going to wrap it up now. Pretty much this episode went different than what I expected, but it was a good one to talk about it. Loyalty. The episode's going to be called Loyalty, like team loyalty in Europe. But honestly, we touched on everything. We touched on personal relationships, coaches, players, as well as organizations and the teams themselves. I think that this is a topic that can be expanded on in the future. So if you're listening, send me some comments. All my ats are at Perfect Pervis and Gmail, perfectpervis@gmail.com. And we can kind of continue this conversation because I think loyalty is one of those things that as football gets bigger in Europe, and we spend a lot of time talking about, the ELF, those rivalries can't be built if people don't have any connection. And I'm not even talking fans. I think fans, it's always good. We always are able to find, loyal fans. But when it comes to like players and coaches, like people sticking with one team or one organization, if we can get those domestic players to have the same feel towards that, like Americans do in like high school and college. I mean, old school college, not this transfer portal college. I don't want to get into that. That's a whole nother thing. But, we can get it into like the old school, high school ways where, I live here. I could live 2 blocks down, but I won't because I don't want to play on that team. Or, someone like me, when I was in high school, I had to move. And because of where I moved, I would have had to play for a rival team. So I went and lived with my grandma. Like, I ain't had time for that. Like, I was not about to go play for that team because of where I lived, So those are the type of things that we have to try to get instilled into some of these domestic organizations. I'm not going to just say players or coaches anymore because it's the full organization. You both said it multiple times from top to bottom. It's the organization, the team, top to bottom. That's where loyalty starts. So really, to sum it up, you got to get loyalty from the top organizations. It's got to trickle down. If it doesn't trickle down, that means up top they're not really loyal. And that's because we got some of these shysters and schemers out there. Y'all know who y'all are. I don't know who y'all are, but once we get rid of them and get, pure football enthusiasts into places and into these positions, that loyalty will happen and you'll see it. I think in certain pockets, you're starting to see it. Like what Ashley said about out there in the Czech Republic, Finland, I would say no. I don't know a loyal fan base except for Senioki Crocodiles. But outside of that, there's other countries, Italy and France. I know a lot of people like where they're from and where they play. That's where they stick to. I know Poland is a little up in the air right now. Germany, it's always tough because there's so many teams, so many players, so many people involved, so much politics. Obviously, loyalty is just one of those things that's fleeting in that area. But Austria, most teams are pretty loyal. Most players stick to where they're from. Oh, shoot, that's all I really got, man. Anything else? We're going to get out of here, but any last things about this topic you guys want to say? Throw it out there.
Nah, I'm good. I'm happy we had this talk. But yeah, 100%. I think everything that we spoke about is more or less what's happening and what could possibly help the situations that is American football. Because at the end of the day, all of us love the sport and we want it to grow. And the only way it's going to grow is if there's continuity and, like you said, loyalty, top to bottom. So I think that's the only way any of this is going to keep growing and becoming into something special.
Adam, you had anything?
No, you all hit it on the head. It takes, people like all of us, we all got to come together, and everybody just got, every day we got to chip it off and figure out what the solutions are, and, step by step, country by country, really.
All right. Well, that's it for this show. Appreciate anybody listening for rocking with us, and we'll see you next time on the off season.